This is the Drake Insights Podcast, your weekly dose of cutting-edge senior living marketing insights. Join me, your host, Natasha Drake, for bold ideas, proven strategies, and inspiring stories straight from the experts. Tune in and let's conquer the senior living marketing landscape together. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Drake Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Natasha Drake from Drake Strategic. So on today's episode, I'm doing something a little bit differently than I've done in the past. Recently, a few weeks ago, I was a guest on Matt Reiners' Connecting the Dots podcast, and we had such a great in-depth strategic conversation that I've had great reviews and great feedback from that I wanted to also share the episode on my platform, and especially because a lot of my viewers and listeners are really looking for that marketing occupancy sales-driven tactics. I wanted to make sure I shared it here as well. Definitely check out Matt Reiners' Connecting the Dots podcast. And what we dug into was really going beyond leads and really focusing on what are those top occupancy-focused marketing strategies and what should you be expecting from your senior living marketing partner. I'm giving you my top 7 tips as you're working with your marketing partner, whether it's an agency or it's a marketing vendor or whoever it is that's working with you or a consultant. What are those things that you should be expecting? Or if you are an agency or a marketing partner, what are the things that you really should be providing for your clients to really focus on not just lead generation, but how does that turn into occupancy? How does that turn into quality leads? What are those top 7 things that you should be doing? So Matt, thank you so much for letting me share this episode, and I hope you all enjoy it.
Welcome back. Today, I am so excited for our guest and our topic. I want to introduce Natasha Drake, founder and CEO of Drake Strategic and the host of the Drake Insights podcast. Natasha almost has 20 years experience in senior living, both on the community and operations level, as well on the agency side. And Natasha, even though you've been in the industry for 20 years, I feel like you're bringing like a fresh perspective, a lot of energy, and just love the sort of stuff you're helping to put out into the world. So thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I can't believe we've both worked in this realm for so long and we haven't done this yet. And we haven't really met much yet till now. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So Natasha, a place I like to start with new guests is just hearing a little bit more about your journey, right? Like what inspired you to get into senior living marketing and really how did Drake Strategic come to be?
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story. So I'm going to see if I can summarize it as much as possible. The biggest thing is that I like to share is all I've ever done is senior living. You know, it kind of chose me, and it's like cliche to say it chose me. I didn't choose it. So right out of college, my neighbor actually was an executive director of an assisted living down the street, and I needed a job out of college. I went to school for marketing. I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I was like, at that, you know how it is after college, you're like, I just need something. And I was a concierge for a couple of years. And then as most of people know that work in the community side, you kind of just work your way up slowly. And so they needed an activity director the next year, I became the activity director. Then they needed marketing support. And finally, I was able to start doing marketing and manager on duty and doing tours and all that stuff. So just kind of fell in my lap and sort of moved my way up, and I loved it. Once I got there, I never wanted to do anything else. I knew I wanted to get into sales and marketing, but how do I get there? You know? And so from that point, I was in sales and marketing roles at different types of communities for about 6 to 8 years, I guess it was. And then I went over to the consulting agency side. So the agency consultant who was overseeing the community I was at, I moved over there. And I started when it was in its infancy. So I had a lot of roles, which I think helps me be more strategic and be more empathetic with people at the community side and the agency side, because I've been in a lot of their shoes. So for example, like I started as a marketing account manager, and then I did consulting and I did some sales coaching and marketing planning. And I worked in the agency world, a few different agencies for about 12 years. So all of that kind of half and half of the community operator side, half the agency side. And then my last role was at Attain, Glen Devens, which everyone knows it closed in the summer of 23. It went bankrupt and we all lost our jobs, unfortunately. And I kind of had to take a step back and be like, what am I doing? What do I like doing? You know, I've done so many different roles in this industry. You know, how do I want to help people moving forward? And that's how I came up with Drake Strategic. Is I really enjoy helping people find strategic solutions, whether it's sales, marketing, whether it's agency support or it's community support or operator support. And that's how it came to be. So I started Drake Strategic almost 2 years ago. And it's been awesome. It's amazing. I love that I get to now use all that weird random experience I've had over the years to actually implement and help people move forward and hit their goals. So that's sorry, it ended up being a long story, but that's that's my full story of how I got into senior living.
No, no, I love that. And I think, you had mentioned like the random different experiences. I mean, it just kind of adds to the entire breadth of like what you know and what you're an expert on too,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
you can kind of get an angle of all these different viewpoints and,
Yeah.
it's unique, but it's good. It's a good and unique. So I love that. And, so I know a lot of communities, right, are looking for a marketing partner today. And I'm wondering from your point of view, like how can a great agency help them feel more supported and aligned with their goals?
Yeah. So I think what you said it perfectly. I think being on both sides and seeing all the different areas that you work with agencies or work with marketing providers or how the community partners with them and vice versa. I've seen the good and the bad. I've seen, where some partners are really just task takers, right? And it's sort of like, what do you need? Okay, we'll provide it, right? And that's kind of how it started early on. And then I've worked at places that are very strategic and very in the weeds. And so I think today, what I like to share with clients or people that I meet with is, your marketing partner, whether it's someone like me or a consultant or a, true marketing agency, needs to be a true partner. And I don't just mean like, yeah, they're our partner. They execute upon what we need. Really accountable, like an honest, transparent, accountable partner who is accountable for your business goals, like to the weeds of what are you trying to achieve? And most times it's occupancy, but right, what is that goal? What are you trying to achieve? And then how do we get there? And truly being that like integral, accountable partner to help move that business forward in the way that works for them and be that data expert, be that marketing expert. These communities are amazing at what they do, right? They know how to work with residents, care for residents, work with families, referrals, all of that. They don't necessarily have all those strategic marketing skills that we have. So someone who truly can help them, guide them, through this process. And I'll get into more of those things. I've kind of bundled it into like my top 7 things that I really feel like a marketing partner, how they do this. But that's sort of today, I think communities and operators should hold people like me and marketing partners to a higher expectation than maybe it was before. And so I hope these things that I'm going to mention sort of help you and know like, what should you be asking? What should you be expecting to how to make your partner be a little more accountable to those things?
Yeah, I love that. And let's jump into it. I mean, like, so what
Yeah.
do you recommend communities and operators should expect from their senior living marketing provider? What should they be hearing, seeing, and doing?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've adjusted these top things a couple times and I've moved them around to what I think is most important and juggled them. But my number one thing that I think a lot of people say they do, and a lot do it really well, but some don't. And I've seen both sides is truly knowing your client, your community. And I think everyone's probably hearing this thinking like, yeah, of course we know our community. We do our SWOT analysis. We hear from the community. We go visit it one time a year, whatever it might be. And I take it a step further. And I mean really, really knowing your community. Like you visit multiple times. You go in the community, you eat dinner, you stay there, you get to know the residents, the families. You're truly in the weeds, like feeling it, hearing it. Because sometimes I find the community sales teams or executive directors, they have an idea, right, of who they are, what they say they are, what the marketing team has always said that they are. And I like to come in and just say, does that match? Like, is that really who you are? Is that really what people are going to see and perceive? And or is that really what the market wants too, right? Is that what the market's looking for? So I say number one is your marketing partner really needs to know you, come in, do a full deep assessment for themselves to understand what are your strengths, your differentiators, your key selling points, your competitors, your audience. Like really, I drive around the community. I drive around the local town. I go to the grocery stores. Like I want to see who are these people? Who are we marketing to that might move here? Because if your partner and your vendor doesn't know you and doesn't know truly what it feels like to be there. Like, are they wearing jackets and suits? Are people wearing t-shirts? Are they laid back? How do they talk? How do they communicate? What's that vibe look like with the care team? And just you can't tell I like really love this stuff. That's why I moved it to number one, because this is what I'm most passionate about. Because I have found that if you know them and you know their story and you feel them, then you can tell their story. And if you don't, you really can't tell their how is a marketing vendor agency going to tell your story if they don't really understand who you are? So that's really number one. And I like to start with that. And that's really most important. So if your vendor and your marketing partner isn't really doing that, I think that's something that should be expected for them to be able to do their job today, especially with like targeting and digital ads. You really need to know that audience. And then my second one, if I can jump to that real quick, is these are like my top two, is setting realistic goals. And again, I think I'm going a little bit further. A lot of consultants and partners and vendors and agencies do, right? They typically set, whether it's like lead generating goals, right, to hit those occupancy numbers. And a lot of times, though, those are given to them from the operator. Like, it's like, okay, they kind of do the data on their own end, saying, well, we know we need to hit these many move-ins, so here's the leads I need you to bring me. And I think it's important for the operator and community to hold your vendor accountable for those goals, and or the vendor saying, like someone like me saying, that's actually not realistic, and let me explain why, and let's talk through the data and what this means, and explain what those goals, what those numbers actually mean. So we have expectations of saying the same language, setting the same goals. What do they mean? And so what I mean by that is not just lead numbers, it's really backing into, what is your overall goal? Like, what are you trying to achieve here? Is it perception in the market? Is it bad ratings? Or is it, most times occupancy? We need to hit a certain occupancy. Then you really dig in and say, okay, well, you have an attrition of what? X. Therefore, we're going to need this many move-ins, right, to offset that each month. Well, sometimes what you'll see is an operator will say, okay, well, we're going to use the industry 15, 20%, conversion ratio. And I dig into the data and say, you've only ever averaged 5 to 10% for the past 5 years. What are you doing to then hit that 15%? And again, it's not, being harsh about it. It's just being honest and like realistic and just saying, this is what I'm seeing you hit. So most likely you're going to hit somewhere around that 10%. Therefore, your lead number actually needs to be this number, right? And then just kind of, that's what I mean by partnership, like really coming to that realization together and them saying, that makes sense. I think that's realistic. Or the operator saying, you know what? Nope, we're actually hiring one or two more salespeople. So we expect that, kind of having that dialogue and that conversation, then backing into that lead goal, but then going even further than that. Because I think a lot of times, like, okay, well, we got our leads. Great. A lot of the agencies and vendors think that's what I'm responsible for, this lead number. It's more than that. It's what happens with those leads. How many will be qualified? How many will be lost? What is the perception or the goal? How many of those will actually convert to a tour? And how many of those tours do you expect to convert to a move-in? And how are we going to hit those goals? So it's like really getting in the weeds. And I think, 10, 15 years ago, this was less common. It was really just, well, get me these leads, do these marketing things to get me these leads. It's not like that now, especially with digital and AI and marketing automation. Like, agencies need to be held a little more responsible, a lot more responsible, I think, to actually those conversions that happen with those leads, helping them through that full journey to move in and being accountable for that too. And I hear a lot saying, well, we're not accountable for move-ins. We're not accountable for occupancy. You absolutely are. And that's, those are my top two, is really knowing the community and then saying you are accountable to that occupancy number, but making sure it's realistic and having like a detailed conversation, like I'm saying, with the operator to come to that goal together. And it's only going to help you move forward. It's only going to help you, get those results you want. So sorry, that was a lot, but those are my top two things that I really feel like, vendors need to be doing today.
Yeah, no, I think it's so important. And on your point too, I mean, like some of the stuff that I've heard from some other agencies, right? They're like, oh no, we just own this number, right? We're just trying to drive the leads. And it's like less of a partnership focus and more of like, no, we did our job, but you guys didn't do yours, right? So it's like kind of playing the blame game. And then any strategic partnership, that's not something you want to do.
I kind of like too, Matt, about what I do is because I'm kind of this like middle of the spoke of a wheel and I partner with all these different vendors for the community. And so no one can say that because I am accountable and responsible for these numbers. So I can go to agency X and say, this is what I need from you. This is what I expect. The digital agency, I can then set those specific goals, the audience and mail list strategy, I can set those goals. So whether it's someone like me, a consultant or an agency, they have a strategic person who should be able to do that nowadays for the community and the operator.
Yeah. And so as we're like thinking about these goals, right? Because I know with some of these things, of course, you got to put money into it to drive some of these results. Like, what
Yeah.
does this mean from a budget perspective to align with these goals?
Yeah. So this is where it can get a little tricky because wow, from all the places I've worked, I've seen this done a lot of different ways. And so this is really I think where not the biggest pushback, but really where you have to really be strategic and partner with the operator on this because so many times I have had, back when I was on the operator side, is I had to come up with the budget. And so I kind of learned how to do this. And then when I was on the agency side, many times operators would give me the budget, right? And they would say, this is our budget and this is what we need to hit. And what I found interesting is some of these places I worked is the people at those agencies would say, okay, we'll make it fit. We'll fit it in and we'll do it. You're just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Like you will not win. And I this is what blows my mind is goals and budgets and leads and all of that. It literally is math. Like it really is. It's data. I mean, yes, you can have good and bad salespeople that need training and things like that. But if you look at your closing conversion ratios, you look at what your typical cost per lead and cost per move-in is, like you have all that historical data, use the math. And so, if the math doesn't math, I kind of say like that happens all the time. Well, I'll say like, okay, let's just take a step back. So your budget, I'm just not going to use real numbers because I can't do math in my head. I'm sorry, I'm not that good. But let's use real numbers and say you want to hit 100 leads per month and you have a budget of $250,000. I'm just throwing things out there. If on average, what you need to look at is what have they hit historically for a cost per lead and a cost per move in perspective, because you can look at industry standards. I think it's good to start there. Great. But each market's different. Like I don't really use that standard across the board, but that's a good starting place. If you don't have data, like start with industry. But then if you have a client or an operator who does have that data, ask for it, dig into that data and say, on average, for the past 5 to 10 years, you have averaged $500 a lead. The budget you gave me and the goals that we found that we came to together. We said we need to hit this, 100 leads to get your move-ins. You've cut now the cost per lead in half. And this literally happened to me. I had a client where this happened, where they had cut their cost per lead in half. And then I just sit there as a partner. Again, this is me being your partner in this, saying, how are we going to do that? How do you expect to close twice as many leads with half the amount of budget? Like, tell me what magic unicorn is going to do this, because I don't think it's possible. And sometimes we have dialogue, like I said, about, okay, we're hiring sales teams, we're doing coaching, they're going to increase their conversion ratios. Like I love that when I can have that dual partnership of, well, do you know someone who can do sales training and coaching to help us with that conversion ratio? Because that's all we have. Like, I'm not saying they have to add more money. I'm saying it needs to be an honest, transparent, realistic dialogue and conversation. And I mean, I'll be honest, I've had times where they say, oh, too bad, that's what it is. And then I go, okay, well, we're not going to hit that number. So we'll try our best, but we'll see what we can do. But most times I have been hit back with from operators of, thank you for that honesty and that transparency. We really think about it. They're doing so many things. They can't look at all of this. They're not focusing on your cost per lead and exactly what marketing you did and your ratios. Like they're just not. Some are, but some aren't. And so that's our job to be able to supply that for them. And so I really think that's my third big tip is, as your marketing partner and as you're the vendor of the community, you need to be able to be that reliable resource and be held to that expectation to say, that's just not going to cut it right now with what you need. We really need to heavy hit to get those leads. This is really what you're looking at. And we can reduce those goals if we can't reduce the budget. We can make some changes here, but they need to be accountable and expected to partner with them on that.
Yeah, I think to your point, right? Like some of them just aren't living in the numbers as much as others. So they'll go in and be like, okay, so what's our cost per lead? I think it should be
Yeah.
this. And then they're just kind of like making it up on the fly. So I think
Yep.
that ability, we go back to partnership, right? And I think what you're kind of saying, what I would sum it up is like politely pushing back at times, just like,
Yes.
rather than being a yes man or woman or person, right? It's
Right.
just more of like, trying to be more realistic. And again, if you're just saying, yep, we can do that, and then you're just setting ourselves up for failure down the road and kicking the can down the road to fail, which is never fun.
And I literally have seen that with some big operators when I came into some of these agencies and being like, guys, you can't do this anymore. We can't keep doing that. And I think anyone listening who knows me knows that the way you just described it is a perfect description of how I am. I think sometimes people can see me as a little abrupt in that, but then when they really learn and they hear why the behind it, it's like they're so grateful that I was able to push back and stand up for that because of, and again, it's about talking about your experience and your research and the data and have it all out there. Don't just say, this is literally a line I used not too long ago with an operator is, this isn't my opinion. There is no opinion.
Mm.
Yes, I think we should do this and XYZ, but I say this is backed by 5 to 10 years of data. It's not an opinion. So you can then decide that you can make your opinion on what you want to do. And it's about us being honest. And like you said, and it's like less of a pushback, but more of a, well, let me share this with you. You may
Mm.
not have this information. Let me share what I have found. Maybe there's data missing somewhere I haven't seen, but this is what I'm seeing. And I would say 9.5 times out of 10, they are grateful for that. And so I push, agencies and consultants and vendors to go there because you're both going to win at the end. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, no, and it makes a lot of sense too. And I think, data tells its own story, and, data doesn't care
Yep.
about your feelings. So,
No, I love it. I love
yeah,
data.
I love when I have an opinion about something and then the data tells me a completely different story. And I'm like, I guess I was wrong. So,
Well,
you
listen,
can adjust.
I'll admit that yeah, I've had that happen too where
Yeah.
I've been pushing things with my team, being like, "Oh no, this really works." And they're like, "This didn't work last time." I'm like, "Oh, it didn't. You're right. I thought it was going to be really good." But like, that happens. And that's why I love that we have data and we can use it. And nowadays with the tools we have, which I know we'll get to soon, you have so much data. Like it's almost like too much data.
Yeah.
So your partner should be able to sift through that for you and tell you what that data means too. So
For sure. And so, we've touched on a couple of things, and I imagine like we need to bring all this together in like a strategic marketing plan, right? And making
yeah.
it super strong to achieve these goals. And I'm wondering from like that perspective, what do you recommend?
Yeah. So I think we're down to number 4 now. So this is where I've seen all over the place. I mean, and I'm sure you have too, working with communities, marketing plans that are like an Excel spreadsheet of like tactics to a full fleshed Word doc, like full narrative to like a PowerPoint deck with some good recommendations. Like it's all over the place. But here I really think, as talking to the operator right now in the community, this is where you really should have high expectations for a strategic, detailed marketing plan.
Mhm.
Truly. Not a list of tactics, not okay, well we're going to do 4 direct mails a year, we're going to do this much spend on PPC, not that. I want a full story, and it starts from number 1. What I said is let's lay out who they are. I want a detailed like breakdown of this is who you are, these are your strengths, these are your key differentiators, this is the story we're going to tell. Because when you give them that marketing plan and you guys are going through it together and you're talking about it together, you all have to be on the same page. So it's really important that you are very clear up front with, on your marketing plan, this is who you are, this is what we're going to focus on, here's your positioning statement, this is who you are, and are we all in agreement? This is your target audience. Like we are working together on this. This is what we talked about. We're going to try these new areas. We're going to extend our reach. This is who your persona is, who you think your prospects are. These are your goals and your budget. And we're in total agreement, very detailed of what those goals mean, how will we get them. And then then after that, all those steps, the marketing plan is a full detailed narrative of how are we going to get there? What is that narrative? And I truly don't think most are being that detailed. At least ones
Mm.
I've seen is they're not getting, it's very like okay, positioning, goals, tactics, budget, right? Like, cause yeah, that's a very clean, and you can have that version. I always do like a spreadsheet version too. That's like breaks all of those things out after. But the marketing plan, like, it needs to tell your operator and your community why. Like, why do I have to spend $500,000 or $1 million? Why are we doing this? Why are we targeting that audience? How are we targeting them? Because I want to be an open book and honest and say that way and it works too because then the sales team is there. They're a part of that planning. They know what you're doing. They know where the leads are coming from. They know what events we're doing. They know what direct mail we're doing. It's all laid out and it's a true, like when I do marketing plans, a true partnership. If they don't understand something or they don't like something or they disagree with something, because I have that a lot. A lot of times it's like, especially now, it's like marketing automation. Why are we doing that? I want to work my leads. Why are you working my leads? Chatbot, a lot of the website digital tools I get pushback from. And I love that because that means they're dialoguing with me. We're going back and forth trying to figure out this plan together. And I say, this is why, because you'll have new leads coming in. This is the tactics we're going to do to bring in those new leads. But then we have to work those leads through the journey and through the process. And then these are the tactics we're going to use to do that. And these are the specific events we're going to do for lead generation or for nurturing. And then we have to get them to move in, right? So then we have conversion tactics. And here's your conversion tactics and why we do different marketing mediums for these tactics versus lead gen. And we're going to follow that prospect through the whole journey. And then you probably need to do some outreach and referrals too, right? So we're going to have a plan for that. And just it being that detailed, they should be able to read through it and know next quarter, this is what we're doing. This is what Natasha's working on. This is what agencies are doing it. This is what it's going to cost. It should be that detailed. And I think what's missing is the why, behind it and the detail behind it and events, like really detailing what those events are in it. I will say I've worked with a lot of great agencies and vendors that do this. So there are a lot that do, but I have seen some that aren't even close. So it's just, we got to kind of get in the middle. And unfortunately, some operators and communities, small communities that don't have a lot of locations and things like that, don't know, right? They don't know any better. Maybe they've never written a marketing plan. They've only worked in senior living, providing care or whatever it might be. So it's our responsibility and job to provide that for them and walk them through that. And what does that mean? And don't use like acronyms and don't like use things that they don't understand too. Like I'll use them, but then I put what it is, like really like help them walk them through that process. So, and it's time consuming. I mean, this takes me a lot of time, a lot of work. But again, just like the first three things I mentioned, it's going to help you hit those goals and it's going to help you have a stronger relationship with your prospects. So yeah, that's why Drake strategic. You can't tell by now. Like I'm very into being detailed and strategic. I mean, I think that's the only way you can really have a strong partnership and get those results that you need to get. So
Yeah, and I think it's an important viewpoint too, because I feel like marketing is one of those things, right? Like, I always think like sales is a blend of, a science versus a dance,
mm-hmm.
and like marketing still has
Mm-hmm.
that too, but you can get clear numbers out of it and really see if you're trending towards those goals or trending not, and like what do you need to adjust. So like getting that level of clarity and granularity makes a lot of sense. And I haven't seen too
And
many.
sometimes
But
Oh no, sometimes you get some good like historical information from them too, like you said. Like they'll say, like I'll get pushbacks like, "Oh, we tried that a couple of years ago," because you don't always know what was done or in the past from other vendors. And they'll say, "Oh no, we did do that," and you'll be able to have that great dialogue, and then they really feel a part of it. If your vendor and your client and your operator doesn't feel a part of that planning process, they're not going to have buy-in. They're not going to want to do those things. You're going to get pushback all the time. But if they can give you those comments, those 2 cents, and you can then adjust the plan and work together on it, it's magic. I've seen even like a quarterly plan, huge increases in results just from that strong dialogue and partnership. So yeah.
yeah, I love that. And I know you had mentioned events, and a lot of the times that's on site. Sometimes the
Right.
marketing agency or consultant isn't on site. And I'm wondering if you
Mm-hmm.
could just like define for us, like, what do events mean to you, and what is the marketing agency partner's responsibility to partner with
Yeah.
communities on this?
Yeah. So this is another one this is actually a big one that I think most aren't as involved in that I have seen. a lot of times what you see is in that marketing plan. So for what I was mentioning before is, well, we got to do 4 lead generating events. We got to do a couple of these types of events, right? But they don't, a lot of agencies either don't have that senior living experience, or either don't know what types of events work or don't work, or when, don't have that level of experience, or just don't want to like get into it. They say like, oh, that's the community's responsibility. So I've seen many times where they'll say, well, we have need to, all right, guys, like it's time for our direct mail. We have that lead generating event. Remember, we need to get that going. So what do you all want to do? And I'm not saying that's wrong. You should have a dialogue about it. But this is a big shift of, I don't think a lot of communities ask or expect this. And I will say the reason why I say that is because I have had communities and operators not expect that from me. And many times go, oh, no, we're going to come up with it. And I say, I want to do it together. I want us to talk about what I have seen be successful, what I think might work in your market. You may disagree. Like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that event. And also, many times the marketing person can help them add their key strengths into that. So what I mean by that is many times communities will say like, okay, well, every year we have an open house. We do it every summer. It's this great thing. It's wonderful. We get a lot of people. And so then I'll say, that's great. Are they leads that come, or are they families? Are they professionals? Oh, it's families and professionals. Okay, well, we need to generate leads. So we want to make sure that we are doing the right type of event that's going to actually bring in leads. So how can we adjust your family-friendly open house to then generate leads? And so this is what the conversation kind of looks like. And then I say, well, I know that you have a great dining program. You've got a great farm to table partnership with local farms. Have you ever done any events around that? Well, no, that's just the dining department.
Mm.
Well, that's a huge selling feature. Remember, that's listed on our list of key differentiators from your competitors. So maybe we can invite some of those partners to the open house, have like a almost like a fair where they can be there. And I think that would bring leads, because not only are they coming to see you, but they can get to know your partner vendors and then taste the food that you have at your community. So that's what I mean by it's the marketing partner's responsibility to do that and to come up with those ideas. We also know more so than the community what timing works, what time of the year works, what for different types of events, because we've seen it with a lot of different communities. We know where there's dips and ebbs and flows in traffic with mail and all that stuff. So just because a community says, well, I'm going to do an event at 9 a.m. on a Monday, we may say, okay, maybe we do 2 events. Maybe we do one at 9 a.m. on a Monday. Maybe we do a Thursday evening for adult children to come. Like, that's the kind of stuff. And secondly, it's also about, I'm going to take a segue, it has to have a purpose. And so it really is the marketing partner's responsibility to say, okay, this is lead generating. Usually it's around this time of the year. These are some events I recommend. Let's work together on that, like I just walked through. Then it's, we actually have generated a ton of leads in the first 6 months. Like, we're pretty good. We now need some advancement and lead nurturing events. And they're not thinking of that, right? They're doing sales. They don't have time to look at that process. They don't know. And so it's our job to say, let's do some advancement conversion events. And types of events that typically work well for that are education, speakers, right? Panels, things like that. And they usually go well in the fall. So could we do something like that? And then it's a partnership. And they go, oh yeah, we know this guy who wrote this book. And right. And it becomes a great dialogue. So you're coming up with that event together. Because if you just come up with it, they don't have buy-in. And if they come up with it, we know it might not work. So that's a big thing that I was really surprised with some of the vendors and the marketing partners I worked with that just say, well, we're waiting for the community to get back to us on their event. And once they get us their event information, then we'll do the direct mail. So that's one that I urge operators and communities and community leaders to push back to your agency or your marketing partner, consultant, whoever it is, and say, what do you recommend? What should we do here? Let's work together, come up with those ideas. Is it lead generating? Is it lead nurturing? Is it conversion? Is it outreach? And why do we have to do them? And when do we have to do them? And really getting that granular. And that should all be in your marketing plan. So, and again, when I do the marketing plan, like annually, you have those ideas. They're not like, you don't have like September 10th, we don't have all the details, but you at least know this is when we're doing lead generating. These are the types of events. These are when we're doing lead nurturing. These are the types of events, right? You put that into the plan and then you flesh it out later. Sorry, I got really into that because I find I'm also very passionate about events because I used to be an event coordinator was when I was at the community level. And so I've seen like good and bad events. And I think you've seen a lot of agencies kind of say, well, that's not my role. Like you were saying earlier, it's not my
Mhm.
job. They do the events and I just market it. And it's like, well, the event, like how good the event is really how good your results are going to be. So that's one that I push back a little more on that. And I really like to partner with communities on that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I even thinking back to my own, experience because I've been that technology vendor at some of these events, right? Like showcasing stuff
Yeah.
there, and I've definitely have seen ones that I thought were better planned out and like had more of an intention behind it, and some of those that were kind of just like, I don't know,
Yeah.
felt like last minute put together, like, oh, we need to do this. And what I've learned from the technology vendor side, if you could work that community, if you see someone you think that's a potential prospect, engage them with in conversation and try and figure out why they haven't pulled the trigger yet. And then
Yep.
give your notes to the ED or sales and marketing director after you leave. So
Well,
I
that's the
thought,
thing is most people know this, but marketing events for senior living, number one. I mean, they still work. They've worked for 30 years, 40 years. We've doing the same thing and they work because you're getting someone to your community, not a hard sell. And like you just said, you can work them and communicate with them there. I mean, you got to do them multiple times a year. They don't all have to be these big, expensive lead
yeah,
generating events. You can do some smaller ones. And to your point, I want to add that also the details behind the event planning I know a lot of agencies can't do a lot of that, but I mean, I can. I know a lot of consultants that can. A lot of my marketing partners can help them with that. What does this mean? What do I need to do? How do I get banner ups? Do I get right? That whole like checklist of how do you do an event? How do you do the name tags and all that? Your vendor should be able to help you a little bit with that too. So those details are really important. Like you said, you don't want people to show up and you're like, I don't know, my marketing person told me to do this. And so we're just here, you want to have those details. So I wanted to add that too, that we can help you with a lot of those event details too.
yeah, I love that. So what's the next step, right? So we've got goals, we've got budget, we've got a plan. What should communities and operators expect at this point from their marketing partner?
Yeah. So this next thing is they need to be proactive. This is a big one that I saw at one of the places I've worked in the past is a lot of reactionary where and I think a lot of places they wait for the operator or the community to raise their hand. It's like not really set it and forget it. Like they're looking at the digital data and they're plugging along and they're doing all the things they need to do, but they're not ahead. You should see me, marketing vendor, partner, agency, should see problems before your operator, your community knows. Like 100%. You should be in the weeds looking at it. I mean, the amount of spreadsheets, that's why you and I need to talk later about some more AI tools that I can use this for. But I have a lot of data and spreadsheets and things that I pull from all different places to constantly look at it. I mean, maybe I'm a little over the top and obsessive, but I want to make sure that we're hitting our goals. The leads are coming in, that they're quality leads. Like, okay, I'm looking at the lead conversions going into the CRM. Oh my gosh, half of them were made lost last month. What's going on? And I'm calling my digital vendor to say, hey, what's going on? Like all of these web conversions are lost leaded. Did we mess something up? What did we do? Like, do we need to adjust our targeting? And I've done that. Like, okay, we changed our targeting. Let's change our messaging. Let's make these changes and fixed it before the operator or the community sees it. That's what you should be doing on the back end. Direct mail hits. Did it hit? Is it good? Did it hit mailboxes? Like you need to be constantly proactive on that. There should never be a call. And it happens. Like sometimes operators call about things that you don't have your eyes on, but it's about being proactive and looking ahead and knowing we need to do this in 6 months. What do I need to do now to get there? Oh, geez, our leads are down. Okay. So let me be prepared for my next meeting with them to say, got to make some shifts in the plan. We were going to do lead generating in 3 months. Think we need to do it now, right? Here's why I think that. And they can say no, but like I have found that's one of my number one best compliments from people is saying, oh my gosh, I would have never even thought about that. 6 months from now, we would have been in the decline. And so being able to be proactive and think ahead, I think a lot of agencies and partners don't do that as much. They just sit and wait. And it's not because they don't want to. They're just busy, right? They're busy doing a lot of other things. They're going through the motions. A lot of times you have different people that do different parts. So maybe the person who looks at the data and does that doesn't really understand it from the big picture, right? So there's a lot of things that go on there, but that is absolutely something that, clients and communities need to expect and if you find that your vendor is you're constantly having these issues and you raise your hand, they really need to be a little more proactive in what they're recommending and adjusting ahead of time and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what you do because you get all the budget, the goals, the plan, then it's like you don't just set it. You got to constantly be looking at it, evaluating it, and adjusting it ahead of time before, because issues happen. It happens all the time. You
Yeah.
expected 100 leads from a direct mail. Oh my gosh, we're not even getting close. Okay, what are we going to do? Maybe we up our PPC spend, right? You can make some adjustments and changes so that we don't hit the end of the month not hitting our goal.
Right. And
Yeah.
I think, like, to your point, like, it sounds like people working with some of these marketing partners just need to hold them to higher standards and expect more from them, right? It seems like from the agency
Yeah.
side, and granted, you've lived the life, but it's almost like I'm going to stay in my lane and this is my job and this
Yes.
is what I'm being accountable to, versus like, hey, we're in this together and like we will do whatever we can to make sure you're successful, because at the end of the day, that's allows us all to win.
Yeah, and I think that's a fear of a lot of agencies and a lot of partners is they don't want to say too much, they don't want to overstep, they don't want to upset their operator, and then that's not a true partnership, right? A true partnership, is really going back and forth and having those dialogues and those conversations and letting them, like what I like to do is I am here to fill you in what's going on, to always be ahead of the game, but letting, your customer be in control. They can say, "It's good, we're fine. We're okay. I'm fine with that." But then when you get the report, they already knew. They already know it was going to go down. We already had that conversation. But I think that's what's most important is just making sure just get over that fear and you will see that honest transparency ahead of the game, it just makes you win more in the end. You're never going to have, oh my gosh, those numbers, how did we didn't know, you didn't see those things. Oh my gosh, no, we didn't expect that. You shouldn't have to have those types of conversations. So yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head with that. It's absolutely true.
Yeah. And, I know you'd mentioned like having the ear to the ground, right? Trying to find these proactive solutions. And as we think about like
Yeah.
innovation, right? Whether it's like
Yeah.
leveraging digital and AI tools and your cutting edge ideas and some of the other platforms that are coming out here. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts around that in terms of like your
Yeah.
role? Is there anything cool out there that people are missing right now?
Yeah, and I think this kind of goes with the last one. Again, it's about being proactive. And I think what happens is because this happened to me. I'm saying these things, hope people don't think I'm pointing fingers. I'm saying these things because these happened to me when I was in agencies. I know what this is like. I know when you're so busy, you have 20 communities, you're trying to get through it all. It's hard to have time to be proactive and to think of innovative solutions. So this is just and I want to make sure I preface that this is just things that I have found and learned and just some advice that I've seen help clients and communities be more successful. But yeah, we need to be more innovative, especially now. Like we can't wait and sit back for our digital vendor to tell us what they think, or we can't wait and sit back for the operator to say, "Hey, like I've heard of XYZ, can we do that?" Because you want to show them your value. Yeah, they're paying you a lot of money, but you need to show not just for the tactics, they're paying you for the value of what you're helping them with, being proactive, giving you that data, being data driven in all of your strategic solutions, and then being innovative. And so, more probably than I do of a lot of these innovative tools, but nowadays the data has proven that all of these digital interactive tools that you can have, the quizzes, the financial forms, the chatbots, the AI tools. We're working on some cool custom AI ChatGPT search features on the actual community's websites. Like whatever it is, floor plans, interactive floor plans, a lot of times those things get cut. It's like, oh, we don't have the money for that. And they're not expensive in the long scheme of things. And when you look at it again, as a marketing partner, my responsibility is saying, not just, oh, do these things, it's flashy and shiny. No, I say, let me show you what I've seen. Let me show you the data that I've seen from these. This specific chatbot, when I've added it to sites, it's increased conversions by 40%.
Wow.
This financial calculator tool, I've seen maybe it's not the highest conversion as a chatbot, but they all move in. They're the highest quality conversions. You kind of have that dialogue. Maybe this like quiz is good for those. We're trying to get those top of the funnel leads. Like talking them through that, why the journey. Everyone goes to your floor plan page. It's the most visited. Look, it's the most visited page of your website. Let's have some interactive, 3D floor plans. They can click in, they can go around. Let's have some virtual tours. Let's have more video. let's do a podcast nowadays. Let's get a podcast going. Let's get a good YouTube channel. I just think it's important. And it's important for the marketing provider to recommend them, but it's also important for you to have that dialogue and that conversation and coming to the table with ideas. I would say more than half of mine get declined, of no, Natasha, we're not paying for that. Here she goes again. But always, I'm thinking of my one client. She probably knows who she is. She always says, I love that you do this. I don't want it. I don't want it right now. I'm not ready for it. But like it sticks in her head. And then a lot of times a month or two later, she'll be like, remember when we were talking about that chat? I just like heard at a conference, it kind of comes back and she'll say, can we get to that now? So again, it kind of ties with the prior ones I mentioned, but just making sure you're proactive and you're looking at the data and you're being innovative because if you think about it too, most of those tools help you meet your goals, right? Most times. So, hey, if you're not getting your web leads, you're not getting the right number, what are things you can recommend to get there? So yeah. And I know you're really good at that. And I would love for more suggestions from you down the road of what works and what doesn't work, because the tech stack that these communities need to have is just vital. And a lot of them don't really understand it, as you know. So being able to educate them and help them understand its value is important.
Yeah, I think to your point about the plan, right? Like a lot of people are just piecemealing it together and are seeing like a bright, shiny object and then make it happen from there. But they really just need to sit down and put that plan in place and then go find solutions for that based on the problems that they're seeing. So my last question for you here, Natasha, why Drake Strategic?
Yeah, I think I summed it up in like 7 things there. I think, it's funny. And that's why, these are truly all recommendations to help communities, but it's also why I do things differently. And I think these are all things from my years of experience that I've learned, seen done well, things not seen done well at the community side as a salesperson at events, being like, this is a disaster. Like, so seeing all that different, the good, the bad, and ugly, and all of that in a lot of different markets, I have just summed up in my mind. There's 1,000 other things that we could talk about, but these are just the top things that I do differently at Drake Strategic. I know a lot of marketing partners that I worked with and a lot of great agencies that do this. There are a lot that do. It's just knowing who's your best partner and how are you going to get to those goals. And I think by following along, these top 7 things that I mentioned, which I can quickly recap if that helps listeners remember all of them. So one is, knowing who you are, really knowing your story, being able to tell your story, knowing you, like you should feel like you really know your partner. We should have that honesty, that transparency, that trust, that integrity, really feeling that. And that's something that I really feel strongly about. Setting realistic goals, realistic budgets, making sure you're a partner on that, with a detailed plan, with detailed events, and then proactive data, innovative solutions. It kind of sums it all up in those top 7 things. But I think that's something that I'm just very passionate, if listeners can't tell, very, very passionate about this. I think there's a way for everyone to have a strong partner. There's a different partner for everyone. Like I might not be the right fit for every single person, but each agency kind of has a niche and works better with different clients. But I'm able to help partner with you and find the right solution. I think that's another differentiator of me is I'm not an agency. I can do a lot of the agency work and creative and things, but if it's digital and we need a different digital provider, we need to find someone who really excels in marketing automation, or you really aren't doing well in SEO, we need to find a really good partner who does SEO. I can help find those partners, right? And I can find the right partner for you. And so it's not just a one box of one place that does it all. It's sort of, I can find all those strong strategic partners for you. So I'm very passionate. Thank you so much for having me on. I love what I do. I really do. I love working in senior living, and I'm just excited that I get to share this with everyone. So appreciate that.
Well, Natasha, I learned a lot. I really appreciate all the energy and knowledge you're bringing to the industry. And thanks for coming on today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Well, that's all we have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching another episode of the Drake Insights podcast. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye. Real quick, if you enjoyed watching the podcast today, please follow me and subscribe so you're notified for the next podcast. And if you have any questions or want to talk after about anything that Drake Strategic can provide for you, please reach out to me, call me, email me, or visit our website at drakestrategic.com.